Sorry guys, I was recording this video today. It is very hot in Melbourne, Australia today. I had my long sleeve, the blue top on that I normally have, sweating bullets in here, so I had to stop and start over again, and so we're in t-shirts today, so apologies for that. Anyway, today's video is a follow-on from last week's introduction to risk mitigation, and if you haven't seen that video, pause this video and go watch it and come back. And hopefully in the last week you guys have been thinking about things that always go wrong in your projects. Maybe you've got a post-it note stuck on your monitor of your computer to remind you to think about this. You could even say to your boss, hey, let's get together a bit of a team workshop session next week. We can all talk about some of the things that go wrong in the project and try and sort of, brainstorm some ideas to solve these problems. Get everyone on board and thinking about this and being more proactive. Now, in today's video, although we're talking about the sales phase or the estimating phase, we are going to be mainly talking about one specific component of the design and construct model specifically to Australia, because I have found that this thing we're going to talk about today is unique to our industry, and I don't think they have this anywhere else in the world. So today's video, we're going to talk about design and construct and how you can possibly take advantage of the loophole in the model, which I generally see BMS companies not doing very much compared to the mechanical contractor and the builder who really know how to play this game. Now, design and construct basically just means that the consultant is only doing, for example, 60% of the design, and then the trades, the contractors, mechanical, electrical, fire, hydraulic, security, and BMS, we all do the 40% component of the design. So design and construct, consultant does some, we do some, where compared to traditionally the consultant, did the entire design, and we, the trade, just built exactly what the consultant did. So design and construct just means that the consultant does enough design so that the builder can take those specifications and schematics and drawings and go out to market and get pricing from the trades and tender to win the job. When they've won the job, then the trades take over and they finalize and fine-tune the last bit of the coordination and the 40% of the design. Now this opens up a massive opportunity for us. Because we have some design responsibility, it means that it opens up this opportunity for us to, or anybody, to be slightly non-compliant to specification. Because we have some design responsibility and we have some ownership, we can sort of deviate slightly. And I think you use an example that I always see in mechanical is that the consultant specified 2 high-load chillers and 1 low-load chiller, and then mechanical ends up installing a buffer tank instead of the low-load chillers. They've got 2 high-load chillers, a buffer tank, which is completely non-compliant. Now, what's important to understand here is that the mechanical contractor didn't just decide, let's not have the low-load chiller, we could save some money and win the job. What they did was that in their tender phase, they did a whole bunch of design work. And they looked at the heat load calculations and they worked out the amount of outside air coming into the building, and they ran some numbers, and they got to the point where they realized that, hey, actually we probably can get away with this not having a low load chiller. We'll need something, so put a big fat buffer tank in there, and we'll do some controls and BMS around the discharging of the buffer tank, and et cetera, and that should get us over the line that we don't have to have the low load chiller. Now, when the consultant reviews their technical submission and the consultant sees, where's the low load chiller, mechanical knows that their submission is going to be rejected. But the point here is that they have already worked out a very strong case, a robust response as to why they have removed the low load chiller, why they value managed it out or value engineered it out. They know it's going to be rejected, and they've got a strong answer coming. They're ready for it. And this is how they get away with it. 2 reasons. The first one is that in Australia, the consultant is originally engaged by the building owner or the developer or the architect. And the consultant comes up with this really great design that's going to last for, have a good solution for the next 20, 30 years. They come up with this design. Their 60% design, their intent and their concept. And then when the the builder's engaged and the project goes to construction phase, in Australia only, I think, the consultant is novated from the architect or owner down to the builder to assist in the delivery of the 40% contractor's design. And that is a huge thing, because now the consultant works for the builder, not the owner, which is a completely different set of priorities. And as we all know, the client is always right, or the customer is always right. So that was the first thing to keep in mind, that when the consultant is reviewing your technical submission, their boss who pays their fees is the builder, not the owner. So keep that in mind for a few minutes. The second thing is that your alternative design solution, it needs to be fit for purpose. It needs to meet the client's brief, if there is one. It needs to meet the Australian standards and the Building Code of Australia, and it needs to work. Now, if you meet those 5 criteria, which isn't that difficult really, then it makes it very difficult for the consultant to reject that submission, because they're sitting there and the builder says, look, this is the solution that we came up with to get our price to win the job, and the consultant says, yo, that's not what we specified. It's a cheaper solution. It's a cheaper first price solution. It's going to be more expensive over 20 years, but it'll technically work. It's fit for purpose and it meets the standards, etc., etc. In that situation, it is very difficult for the consultant to say to their client, no, I'm going to reject that, and you're going to have to find another $200,000 or $300,000 to make up the difference. It's really difficult to do that. And I've been in that situation loads of times when I'm under pressure to sign off on the BMS. It's not compliant, and the builder is pressurizing me, and I'm trying to balance that, sort of trying to do the right thing for our initial client and our new client. It's a difficult thing to get right. But the most important thing here, before you guys go away and start value engineering out and just providing high-level interface solutions and not low-level interface solutions, it's important to realize that the mechanical contractor thought this through very carefully. They were very sure that when the consultant rejected their submission, that they had done the work, they ran the numbers, and they had a really strong case to put forward. So you got to do that too. So if you're a BMS contractor and you want to be non-compliant specification, and you have a good solution, like you might actually have a better solution than the consultant had, but you got to run that design through at your estimating phase, not the design phase, and prepare yourself for a rejected submission and how you're going to play that game. Now, a lot of people would say that this manipulation of the DNC model, it's maybe a bit unethical, and it doesn't really meet the intent of how the DNC model is supposed to work. And I completely agree with that. In fact, I think that this particular thing is the biggest issue in our industry and here in Australia at the moment. That the person signing off the BMS, or the person that signs off the project at the end, is not independent from the builder. It's a huge issue. So I'm not suggesting at all that you guys should go out now and just start doing whatever you want. I'm just want you to understand that this is how other people, your client and your client's client, is manipulating the DNC model. And even if you are a risk-averse company and you don't want to do that, because it's risky, like the consultant might just hold their line at the end and reject your submission. So you got to understand that and balance that risk. But I think at a minimum, it's important that you guys understand how this works. And if you're not going to play the game, at least learn how to understand how the game works, so it doesn't surprise you when this is what's going on out there. So guys, if you got some value out of this video, please like and subscribe and support me on LinkedIn, and leave a comment. Actually, I would be very interested to know, if you're watching this video and you're not in Australia, does the consultant get novated from the owner to the builder at the start of construction? So you guys in the US and the UK and wherever you're in Europe, just put a comment and say, yep, here and wherever, this does not happen, or the consultant is novated or not. I'd be really interested to find out if this novation of the consultant is happening in other countries or only here in Australia.